Hello, SMITE fans. Welcome back in more week 5 of the Swiss stage. It's North America's turn. It's Malum. It's inbound. It's October 27th, and the games keep coming. Playoffs is just around the corner for the SMITE 2 Founder Series on the road to sold out Las Vegas. All those accolades, it gets better and better and better, and the gameplay hasn't even happened yet. Inbound, we're feeling good. We're feeling pumped. I know I am.
Yeah, I mean, this is wrapping up at least the Swiss stage of NA. It's a tough time to go through. Swiss stage is a rather important time because you're trying to make it through, trying to get through, trying to make it to Vegas. Important game for both of these teams.
It really is. Mr. Play-by-Play up against some tough odds in Borscht. Borscht, the odds-on favorite, really from everybody's perspective, but Mr. Play-by-Play have shown us time and time again throughout this bracket, all the way back to their matchup with Scrumptious, that they are here to play, which, of course, speaking of playing, make sure you're constantly hitting exclamation point access in the Twitch chat to play Smite 2 yourself. Let's look at the bracket. Let's see how we got to this point. And as I mentioned, Mr. Play-by-Play, they've had a weird bracket for themselves. Scrumptious had a really good matchup against them. There were some moments of greatness. I remember Snatty on the Ares in particular had a really great game, but since then, Mr. Play-by-Play has been on a tough trajectory. And one of the crazier stories, though, inbound, looking at Borscht, their journey through this bracket has been an up and down journey, to say the least.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for both of these teams. We've had some highs for both of them for sure. Borscht, started out pretty strong, took down Funhavers. They had a few stumbles here and there. Mr. Play-by-Play, though, again, it's like this tale of two teams. They can beat these bad teams. Once they play against those really, really good teams, they seem to struggle. And this Borscht team is a really good team. So if Mr. Play-by-Play is going to want to win this one, make it to Vegas, make it to that point, they're going to have to play a very, very good game of Smite. Not just one. They're going to have to take them 2 times.
Yeah, that's going to be the toughest part for sure for Mr. Play-by-Play. But this isn't the only matchup we've got going on today. Still 2 more sets to go in total. So let's look at the schedule and see what lies ahead. Earlier this morning, we got to see Tithonic versus Threat a little midnight in what was a pretty exciting 2-0. I almost thought we'd have a chance at a game 3. I know chat was thinking the same thing. So far for the rest of today, we got Mr. Play-by-Play versus Borscht coming up really soon. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll have Jorby and Trelly back for Garf's Goblins versus Look Within. Garf's Goblins, I know, they've emerged as a favorite. They've emerged as we can do it. We can do this. But Look Within, I don't think is a team to be forgotten either.
Yeah, this is going to be a great way to round out this 2-2 record of this Switch stage. Mr. Play-by-Play, Borscht going to be a really good one. Same with Garf Goblins and Look Within. Starting with this first one, though, we've seen a lot from both of these teams. Again, Borscht, a bunch of very good players. FineOK, Panda Cat. There's a lot of talent on this team. They have to take this first game. Falling down 0-1, especially when you're a heavy favorite, can put a lot more pressure on you. And when you are kind of backs up against the wall, there is like some strange things that can happen. We've seen a lot of invades. Even in that second game, we saw an invade. We almost saw that Jingwei die very, very early. So this first game is going to be very important. You can't have your backs against the wall right away. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
I'm right there with you. Picks and bans all ready for game number 1. So let's hop into P's and B's. We've seen the point so far has been who's banning Baron. And if you're banning Baron, are you setting up the first pick Fenrir? That's kind of been the tale for everybody the last couple of weekends. Will it be the same thing? I feel like Mr. Play-by-Play, and I'm curious what you think inbound. First of all, Amaterasu ban, crazy to target ban Snatty. But if they're playing through Snatty, you're going up against Baskin.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
Exciting solo lane for sure. I mean, these are the 2 kind of strengths of both of these teams. Baskin has played phenomenally, and then Snatty is kind of like the player on Mr. Play-by-Play. I think banning away the Alma is fantastic. The Fenrir response ban by Mr. Play-by-Play. As you said, though, Baron's usually the ban. We get to see Baron, and it's not just this character's OP, this is going to be a win. We've not really seen it. How are they going to pilot it? Where are they going to put it? Also, Malum, are they going to put it in support? Are they going to put it solo? Maybe we even see it mid. There's a lot of flex potential with Baron, and I think that's like why Fenrir is a really good first pick. It's why Baron's a really good first pick, because 1, they're dominant, insane CC, great damage. The second part, though, so much flex potential, and it just opens up this massive amount of comps that Borscht can play. And Mr. Play-by-Play is going to be forced into kind of just guessing where the Baron's going, or just playing super safe characters, which is what Yemoja and Hercules are. However, Baron's a really, really good pick into both of these gods, but I mean, you kind of got to play Yemoja and Hercules. They're just very, very strong.
I love your call out of Baron creating that flex opportunity for Borscht because it's already set up. Like you said, you can grab the Anubis, and even the Anubis kind of does bring some flex potential. While Baskin hasn't really been the Anubis solo player that a lot of North America has been, just having those options available can be so stressful. And if you're taking away the Amaterasu, which has been the pick for Snatty to go to, you've already taken a lot of their god pool away. Loki, though, grabbed for Borscht for Ratmilk, who's been leaning heavily on Sasano, but Loki arguably doing better anyway.
I think Loki's just kind of that second jungler when Fenrir gets banned. And Fenrir, even when it's played in solo lane, Loki's kind of just that default jungler, very safe, can farm, does just about whatever you need. On the other side, Mr. Play-by-Play locking in this Jingwei, who far and away, I think the best hunter available. I think Jingwei should be prioed more. You compare her to a lot of these other hunters, I guess, like the Anhur, the Cern. The only real hunter that contests with her is that Neath, and you don't really get that consistent auto attack damage. You usually get a mage style with the Neath. So I like this Jingwei with Mr. Play-by-Play. And although Borscht got this Baron, they have this flex potential, they have the Anubis. I like how this top 3 is shaped up with Mr. Play-by-Play. They have a lot of ways to play around the game, play around the Baron. They can look to cage it off. They can kind of just run in it, try to zone it. Or if the game goes late enough, the Jingwei is just going to crit him and kill him.
I am surprised we don't see the Zeus grabbed. The Nuwa is the pickup for Mr. Play-by-Play. The Emoja Zeus combo has been pretty consistent so far. I feel like yesterday in particular it popped off. I think of the corner turning into the Zeus Emoja, but Borscht, they've already committed to Baron. They've committed to Anubis, so they're not going to grab the Zeus right away. Bellona is actually their go-to.
Yeah, and it looks like the Baron is actually going to be played in support with that Bellona lock-in. Anubis going mid, Bellona going to solo lane. Interesting solo lane matchup. I really think Herc just kind of dominates this lane, so interested to see how Baskin opts to play this Bellona into Hercules matchup. Maybe he looks to proxy because that's one of the things that Bellona does very well. Borscht, though, their last pick, locking this on her. A lot of pressure on the side of Borscht. That's the thing that's sticking out to me. We have this Anubis in mid lane. Your duo lane is the on her Baron, which brings a lot of pressure. And you don't really have a ton on the side of Mr. Play-by-Play. As you stated, Zeus Yemoja is a very good combo. And it's for multitude of reasons. Really good team fight. But the biggest thing is how good they can kind of just get to that level 5 and how much just big area damage they have. Nuwa doesn't have that. I'm really interested to see how Mr. Play-by-Play is going to play these team fights because it's almost kind of devolved into a dive comp for the side of Play-by-Play, but they have a Yemoja with it. So very interesting 5v5 played out by Mr. Play-by-Play. Baron, or the Mordred last pick, probably going to the jungle. It looks like it's just dive the on her, dive the Anubis. But what does Baron want you to do, Malum? Baron wants you to run at him. It's going to be a lot on the side of Fine. Okay, what is he going to be able to do on this Baron? How is he going to be able to play these team fights? It's exciting.
It's a little nerve-wracking with the excitement for sure. Because Mr. Play-by-Play, like you said, you've got to play perfect because you've drafted a little clunkiness and you're already not in the situation that's favored for you by a lot of the community, a lot of the analysis we've been doing. I'm like, SMITE too long didn't watch. So now you're just saying, all right, let's just keep stacking odds and stacking odds. I will say too, worth mentioning for Borscht, last week we saw some inconsistency on if it was going to be Panda Cat or Pagon mid or ADC. It almost seemed like they were going alongside which picks they were playing. So worth keeping that in mind. I want to say we even saw Panda Cat on the Anubis, so definitely worth keeping an eye on there. And the Mordred for me also, because like you were talking about, you've got such a heavy dive comp and you're playing for that level 5. Mr. Play-by-Play, I feel like the Mordred, Mordred's going to want to do so much. Mr. Play-by-Play is kind of going to be in the spot of like, we kind of want to also, but we kind of can't.
Yeah, and first off, I want to... Your highlight of the Anubis and on her, I think there is something there to say Anubis could be played in duo with this Baron. A lot of sustain. They have a lot of kill potential and a good amount of CC. And we've seen Pagon play a lot of on her, so that's a really good shout. It could go either way, and I think it works out either way for both of the on her mid or the on her ADC. And yeah, on the other side, Mordred's just going to want to get involved, and that's what Herc's going to want to do also. So I'm really curious to see how they kind of play for this level 5 spike. How are they going to kind of maneuver around diving into this Borscht comp? Because if you go a little bit too deep as the Mordred, there's really not a ton of stuff to peel you out. There's not, you know, Hecate ult to give you that teleport to come back to the team. And if you're ulting into that fight, you really have nothing to get out. So is it a big worry? It could be. But there is that potential where if Mordred does get ahead, if he does get just a small lead, The dive damage of Hercules and Mordred with Nua ult on top, and then try to dive our Jingwei, who's in the back getting peeled by Emoja. There is potential for Mr. Play-by-Play's comp to come out seamless, but I think a lot of it comes down to how is this Mordred gonna do? Can he get that lead? Because if he can't, he's just gonna be fodder when he tries to dive.
Yeah, I was going to say, you painted the perfect picture of Mr. Play-by-Play's fight, because if you look at those smudges of what you painted, you see things like, okay, well, Mordred's gone in, but Yamoja, she's in this tough spot of she's not where she normally would be. She's not sitting in that back line trying to give you riptides to get back to safety, using the rebuke to kind of redirect the team fight, because you've required her now with your composition where she's kind of got to get dragged along with the rest of Mr. Play-by-Play and force things to happen. So just it's that synergy, and Mr. Play-by-Play are going to have to figure out a way to make those synergies work. And when I look at Borscht, I see a lot less work for a lot more result potential there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good way to put it, because I think the best way to always start when you're talking about 5v5, like how it's going to happen with team fights, is just looking at the CC side of things. Baron's got long range CC. It's not hard CC, but it's efficient CC. It's effective CC. Anubis has got an instant stun on a very low cooldown that lasts for a pretty good amount of time. They have really good zoning with the on her wall. On the other side of things, it's kind of like we have to make plays. Hercules has to look for a pluck and find that. I will say, though, with how strong Herc is still looking, some people still think he's way too overpowered. Some people think he's gotten nerfed too hard. I still think he's more towards that upper half of strength, where if he can just be a nuisance, like he's not going to kill everyone, he's not going to do any of that, but if he can just be tanky enough, scary enough to pull relics and stuff like that, that's kind of all his job really is. Again, the issue, and I hate coming back around to this because we just talked about it, but this Mordred is really just the most important part of this entire puzzle of Mr. Play-by-Play. And if they're going to win, again, we've stated this a few times, Mr. Play-by-Play is the underdog. They are the team that kind of has to make a showing in this first game. There's a little bit more pressure on Borscht for sure, but Mr. Play-by-Play wants to come out swinging.
Well, we'll see who is the one to come out swinging. We're ready for game number 1 between Borscht and Mr. Play-by-Play. Playoffs are on the line, and if you go down, you go to the last chance qualifier. It's Malum, Endbound, and of course, shout your spectators. There's the goats. We've got Doug with it as well, and already Borscht in the jungle, looking aggressive. Mr. Play-by-Play, not as close. You mentioned earlier that sort of that pick, right? Those early picks and where they could come from. I almost was starting to think the closer we've been in game, as we do have a pause coming out early, is I was looking for Mr. Play-by-Play to maybe get crazy in the jungle and look for something early, because a lot of the stuff we're both worried about, if you got aggressive in the jungle, if you corner camped, stealth grassed camp and looked for an early pick, that could have alleviated some of those problems.
Yeah, you're for sure right. That is something that they could have looked to do. Did you see what I saw on the Borscht side of things, Malum?
I did.
We got Fino K back in solo lane. We've got Baskin in mid lane. Awesome Jake in support. So we've got a switch up of what we expected from Borscht.
Yeah,
we expect to
okay.
see Baskin normally in solo. Last week, a little bit of funkiness. This one maybe just because they don't have the entire roster available. Maybe they have a sub and they kind of flipped the roster to be as effective as they could find it. But a little interesting.
Yeah, it definitely caught me off guard. You know, it's funny, you caught me in my order of operations of giving the intro. I look at the map, I look at the relics, then I go to characters, and I got cut off right before that second portion. But looking at it like that, if you're Mr. Play-by-Play, do you kind of look at that as, I almost hate to say as a win, but do you look at it as like, okay, things are a little different than we anticipated? They would have seen it in the lobby, of course, so they've had a while to kind of adjust and get used to and prepare for what they're seeing, but I don't know. I feel like it's almost like all right, well, what now? Does this change our play style?
I mean, you would think, but you look at kind of like Fino K in solo lane. Well, I mean, he has played Smite 1 solo lane, been to a bunch of worlds, competed. Is he really a weak point?
An
compared
accolade
to
or two.
I mean, yeah, I mean, technically he's a little weak point compared to Baskin. Baskin playing mid lane. Is Baskin ever a weak point? Not really.
Exactly.
I mean, even Jake at the beginning of last year was probably the best support in the entire game. Smite 1, it was a very, snowball meta you wanted to fight, and that's what Jake was really good at. Malum in Smite 2, the meta is kind of, fighting early and kind of getting those leads and snowballing. So I'm not going to say it's a good thing. It's for sure not a good thing to not have your entire roster, but maybe it's like a different change of pace for Borscht that Mr. Play-by-Play is not going to be able to, see coming.
Yeah.
Because Jake plays these mage solos that have like sustain and good poke. Very frustrating, where if you ever take a bad trade in the early game, you're feeling like you're getting choked out. You can't breathe because your purple's invaded. Guess what? Your next speed's invaded. Your back camps are now warded, and you can't really do much over there. So it is definitely a different roster. It's going to be a different way that they're going to play. They're not the same players. They are different. But this roster, it's going to be interesting. And I keep saying interesting because this Borscht roster in general is interesting.
It's the perfect call for it.
Yeah. It's you had Final K role swapping mid lane. There is some teammate like they were teammates in the past with Pegon. It's just an overall interesting roster, and what a good way to kind of end there too, and to final game make it to the Vegas thing with this roster flip.
I will be one thing too, and the reason I brought up are you almost excited about the roster changes is one thing we saw with Baskin in particular was sort of this ramp up with SMITE 2, where for the open alpha tournaments we saw Baskin he was on the roster, but he wasn't actually there to play. He was on vacation. Then we saw Baskin play a little bit rusty on top of it being, it's a new game in a lot of aspects, even if a lot of stuff is very familiar to SMITE 1. So in terms of comfort, maybe that's where Mr. Play-by-Play find their leg up. Another thing I've been thinking about with Borscht is last week, they up against K Club. It was a very, I'm going to call it a rough game. I'm not sure how much you caught of the broadcast, but Trelly and I we started to become K Club fans by the end of the game with how Borscht was starting to kind of troll around and have fun in game number 2. And you've called out this change of vibes. I really like that after a week like that of, all right, we had the silliness. It almost blew up in our face. Now we have playoffs, but it's a new roster. Maybe some of that's behind and it's fresh mindset of, okay, we're just here to win. We want to clean it up, go to playoffs, take a break, relax, and watch the last chance qualifiers.
And there's also something to be said about, they want to get this game done with. They want to be a 2-0. They want to, have the rest of their Sunday, not really go to that game 3. And with that early pressure, kind of just running it down at this early portion, we're about a minute in. Malum, you say you have this thing that you walk through with map and then relics and then gods and players. Is there anything that's sticking out to you?
I mean, looking at relics-wise, that's a lot of blinks for Borscht, but they do have a shell. That was something we saw earlier today, there was a prioritization of going blinks, and there was kind of a, hey, where's your shell for Yamoja? So at least there's one, but only one. And going to the other side, I'm very interested in the difference of Sunders. Only one Sunder on the map for each team, and Sunders have been they've fallen to the wayside, but their relevance is still there.
Yeah, and I love that you start with the relics, because this is what I love talking about right now, because there's been a massive imbalance with relics. It was Sunder that was dominating, then it was Shell.
Yep.
Shell's kind of falling off a little bit, and even into matchups like this Yamoja, like the Amir, where you want the Shell actually fighting left early. Jake's out of position.
Might be a first blood. There's that Shell out to keep Dashboard alive. The knock up. The autos aren't going to find a home. Finally, they do. A first blood goes to Pagon. Jake blinks away, and the blink is good to stay alive. So first blood, go to Borscht, and Mr. Play-by-Play are unable to find an answer. It laying Crim low, but out of range. But Baskin feeling it on the Anubis early.
And this is what Anubis does. It sits on your tower line. You try to gank him. He has very good turn potential now after they switched up his passive. His passive in SMITE 1 was just lifesteal off of more lifesteal. And then you also had just CCR. That's kind of what it was. It was very hard to kill him in the later portions of the game. But in the early portions, it wasn't a ton of strength. Pegon actually getting aggressive and left. I saw the dash in also. I got a little nervous, but yeah, the Anubis passive in SMITE 1 was definitely something where it wasn't super strong early. Anubis passive in SMITE 2 is a very strong early game protection buff when you're low. You also get lifesteal when you're low. It's very hard to burst him down in the early portion. So Baskin wants to kind of sit on tower line, push, sustain, poke out Crim, and Nua's not going to be really able to do much. If they want to take pressure off mid lane, Lairs is going to have to gank like this, but I mean, Baskin's just got so much safety, especially when he hits 5.
Gank on the dashboard is good. Second kill for Borscht. First for Rat Milk on the Loki, which is a big time positive for the entirety of that duo lane. Rat Milk now getting aggressive in the jungle too. Hang on, solo lane. Final K! Wow. Smack! Soloed on the Snatty. Still got it. in solo, to say the least. And Borscht continuing the invade into the jungle. Purple secured. Speed not up yet. We'll see if they stick around.
And I was not familiar with Final K's game over there. I thought the match was going to be a little difficult, but Jake on the left side playing for that speed way too far forward. He gets picked. There's not much you can really do here. Rat Milk will take the
He went
trade,
in!
though.
Went in and got it. Brought down Pringles. Pagon is here now as well. With all the low levels you've got for Borscht and all the ultimates online, it's time to fight. Krim might just go down. The Clay Soldiers doing their job. So Krim will get away, but damage done. That's already 4 kills in total for Borscht. What a start.
And I said Jake likes fighting early. Maybe this was even a little bit too much fighting or a little more fighting than expected.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about your analysis being on point.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Jake loves to do. And if you're not ready for it, if you're not ready to take those fights like Dashboard really hasn't been, and Pringles really hasn't been, it's really suffocating. You already have a pretty big lead on Jake, and when Jake plays with the lead, that's the best awesome Jake. So far, the worry I have with Mr. Play-by-Play is this Yemoja. The job's not going to get any easier. You see, he opts for that shell. We were talking about shells and relics earlier. This is one of the OG tough matchups for Yemoja. I think it was Polar Bear Mike kind of came up with Baron support into Yemoja. You don't really have any outplay to get away from his ultimate. If you ever get rooted, you can't really use your 3 unless you use it right away. It's a very tough matchup, and he has no beads into this matchup. Jake is going to be able to kind of just walk up and look for trades whenever he wants without much threat.
And the call-out's perfect because you mentioned a lot of the CC for Borscht across the board is sneaky like that, where you look at it on paper and you say, oh, there's no big team-wide CC. Then you think, well, there's a lot of lockdown, though, and that could really come into play for Borscht with how they're set up early. I will give some credit towards the Mordred because we wanted to see the Mordred get aggressive early, and while it happened pre-level 5, which wasn't what we were looking for, Snouty's just face-taking all this damage in Final K. Certainly remembers how much damage Bologna can do and finds a solo.
Why is he making this god look like it should be first picked every game?
I was just thinking that. Like, I thought Bologna was mid. Hello?
Absolutely insane play so far out of Final K, and when you play Bologna, this is what you want. You want this pressure, this early lead, because when you scale to the late game, Bologna doesn't have like that instant CC, that survivability really outside of her ultimate. And if you use the ultimate to go in, you don't have the ultimate to get out. So it's a difficult job to play Bologna late, but you know, it doesn't really take a genius to play a late game Bologna if you're already up 2 levels at 6 minutes. And with how well Final K's kind of managed this early game, how is he going to look to rotate to like Gold Furies? Is he going to look to proxy? I love seeing solo laners get leads, look for a proxy, and then use the teleport to get to the other side of the map.
I'm so surprised by solo. Might even be surprised by duo. Almost a solo kill on the Jing Wei, but meanwhile Dashboard caught between 2 and sent to the Grayscale. Pagon really stepping up aggressive onto Pringles because look who's around the corner. You've got Jake. Dive is out. Mez is on. Desert's Fury off the mark. Now the airstrike is good. Hang on. Oh, and never mind. JK. Impale is good. And Pringles goes down. Make it 7 for Borscht and Baskin. Sneaky, sneaky. Wrap out. Laser 2. Doesn't get the speed, though.
Can I just say, I kind of liked that play by Pringles there. It already feels like the map is bleeding. If he gets that kill onto Pagon, excuse me, if he gets the kill onto Pagon, gets that trade, that's a really good play. Like, you're already down 2 levels by both support and ADC, 2 levels in solo, a level in jungle. Malum, this is bleeding that is very hard to stop, especially when you're playing against these aggressive, I want to say ex-SPL players, but it's just players that have played a lot of Smite 2 and they know how to push their leads. Borscht knows how to do that. They get this lead, they are going to be running at your buffs. We've already seen them showing up at purples. We've already seen them showing up at speeds. And Final K over on the right side of the map, he's not even trading ultimates. Snatty's just forced to ult to trade wave, or to kill wave. This is like a very tough spot for Mr. Play-to-Play.
Oh no. Not under your own tower. 3rd solo kill for Final K. Mordred answers. Gonna have help with a new ult, but the health bar Final K just isn't really dropping. Finally it goes. It took a lot, but a shutdown goes to Lairs as Final K is gone. But man, damage is done. 3 for Bologna. There's 3 for Rat Milk. We're 8 minutes in, and Gold's already starting to spiral. You said it. You said bleeding the map. And Borscht are doing that with a pretty fine edge.
Since the change to Gold, a few weeks ago now. It was probably CA3 that I think the big change to gold happened. We hadn't really seen a ton of massive leads. 3K at 8 minutes is a huge lead. Like, don't get confused. It is a massive lead. Gold Fury is going to go down right now also. This lead is just growing and growing and growing. And a big mistake that I see teams make sometimes is they'll go for Gold Furies. Actually, pause on that. Fight in line.
Already an ult on the dashboard. Laser out. Rat Milk with the credit and dashboard dead. Make it 2 for the old Rat Milk as Pringles follows suit. And a rampage for the Loki. Borscht just continuing to dominate.
And life nowhere to be found for Mr. Play-by-Play. Really, it's just mid lane. Prim has got that 1 kill, that 1 assist. He's kind of in an okay spot. I guess Layers is also in an okay spot, at least being even. But you're going to need more than even out of your mid and jungler to kind of live this onslaught that Borscht is bringing on. And to the previous point I had, the gold furies that they gold for are bad timings when, you know, speed is up, purple's up, and they can't really get anything besides the gold fury. They did it before purple and speed were up, so they're going to be able to invade those also. That 3K gold lead we were just talking about, Malum, it is almost 6K a minute later.
Yeah, that's why you mention gold leads, right? Is to watch them grow. But usually I'm writing down, okay, it was 3K at 8, and I write a note, check in at 11. Well, usually it's not like growing this quickly, so that's a bit tough. And for Mr. Play-by-Play, I will say I'm gonna go all the way back to their matchup against Scrumptious in week 1 of Swiss. It was a similar game to this. Oh no, Blink, damage, airstrike forced, and Mr. Play-by-Play kind of made a comeback. They didn't win, but they did make a comeback. I think Snatty was 0-6 in lane on Ares, maybe 0-5. So there's always a chance, but that chance isn't looking great. Mordred out on the Loki, but Pringles is already dead. Not ideal at all. Dashboard, in, gone. Double kill for Pagon. Mr. Play-by-Play is just... I mean... Frustrations have to be at an all-time high inbound, but what do you do when your jungle isn't your jungle anymore, and when the only lane you own is mid lane?
And I would even say they own mid lane.
They're paying
have
rent.
A partial stock in it. Yeah, they're renting it currently. Because, you know, eventually, Final K is going to come knocking, trying to get that rent. Jake's going to come knocking, trying to get that rent. And Crim's not going to have an easy time living the dive. Talking about Nua as a character, she is a late game menace. But this early portion, even with the buff to the movement speed to her 1, Snatty's he just dashed in front of 3. It's tough.
The boulder looked really cool, though. I love the new design in it. I like the size improvements to the boulder.
Knocks up, too. Nice.
So cool. It's so cool. 13-2 for Borscht, coming up on 11.5 minutes. Final K has not lost a step in solo so far, and it's not to take too much away from Snatty. I will say the Hercules so far, this is the second time I've watched it with my own eyes in a competitive setting, and neither time has looked as good as I anticipated.
I think it is always more of a ranked god than it is in competitive. Even when it's good in competitive, it's like better in ranked because anti-heal, a ton of CC. Pringles can't even do anything here. Just gonna trade ults with Final K if Final K wants it. And actually really smart play by Final K there, not ulting right away. Like it is, they're just playing with them at this point. It is a blowout at this point. And if you're on the side of Mr. Play-by-Play, you've got to slow down something somewhere. This game needs to be slowed down. Crim getting ulted in mid, solo to mid is not slowing the game down. Also dying in mid, Layers gets the blink off, but I think he's still dead. He does get out, but this does not slow the game down. And on Borscht's side of things, you want to speed the game up. You want to take more fights. You want to fight on more things, and that's exactly what they're doing.
At this point, you may as well aim for a 20-minute end. There's the life of the party after the blink, bringing back that Yamoja. Now the Impale, the Reptu, and Dashboard is dead, to say the least. And Borscht are destroying the mid lane. It's no longer rented. Ownership's been taken back by Borscht. Tier 1s are down in each lane, and now Tier 2 is started up in the mid lane. No answer from Mr. Play-by-Play. They've got Snatty proxying in solo just to get some farm to try to hit level 12. I mean, it's grim.
Grim indeed. And I mean, at this point, usually it's on the side of, you know, what can we do to come back? What do we need to do? Do we need to slow the game down? Do we need to look to proxy? Do we need to, you know, sneak a fire giant? Whatever it is. Malum, this game is not in a spot where Mr. Play-by-Play can make plays to come back into this game. It is so dire. There has to be multiple misplays by Borscht to actually lose this game. This is we drafted like this, kill and left. Maybe they can kill Jake, but there's 2 around him.
Yep, reinforcements on the way. Pursue the weak. Re-engages. Will bring up a couple and maybe even get a pick. But how much will it turn around, and can you continue to stand and throw? Lair's not going to last for long. The assassinate is good, and the auto reset gives the kill to Ratmilk, who is low but will not die to the ultimate from Krim. So still 3 kills for Mr. Play-by-Play, and now you've got an Honor jumping in to take the 2v1. Pagon's feeling it. Caught out by the Riptide and was still willing to chase. All right, sure. Don't do it. Wrap. Jingwei's here. A 2v1 for Paskin, but I'm liking the odds! Later, Pringles!
You know how I was saying there's going to have to be multiple misplays? I actually think it's going to be more than multiple. Is there like a bigger number to say than multiple misplays? We're going to need hundreds
Does Hindu
of
Man
misplays.
still have that hammer he used on Baskin's keyboard?
Oh, they might have to do something like that to come back into this game, because at this point, disaster everywhere on the map. There is a slight worry in me, though, because you said last week, a little bit of trolling happened, and Basket's killing at the left Phoenix, and they don't even have the tier 2 down, but like, this is a trade. This is a good trade for Mr. Play-by-Play, and with Final K here also, maybe even worse.
We'll see how bad it gets. Life at the party out. Will not bring back the Balone. It's going to be a tough time. Ballona's got to get back in for the fight. There it is. And now it's good for Borscht once again. Just when I thought maybe it'd turn around for Mr. Play-by-Play, it falls apart again. And Pringles once again sees the gray screen. 8 deaths for the Jingwei. Awesome Jake still vibing between tier 2 and Phoenix and having a great time picking up a double kill. Final K says, hey, Ryan, let's get this tower while we're at it. Snatty is here and will ult and tickle the Loki. He would think he had defense.
I don't even have like much to say off of that, because they are just so far behind at this point. Pagon misses the ability. I guess that's how Mr. Play-by-Play can come back, with Borscht missing abilities. Pagon trolling like that, not hitting the abilities. But there is a very, very, very small worry in me right now that they're going to over troll and maybe put this in a spot where it becomes, you know, a 25-minute game, because no Fire Giant yet. They haven't broken the base, so it's not completely sold yet. There are still ways to come back, maybe a Soul and Fire Giant or something like that, or a wipe on Phoenix. But you said last week they trolled, and there's a lot of potential for them to troll. That's my only worry right now. Just if Borscht doesn't troll, this game should be 1-0.
I'm with you for sure, and even going back to how they played against Allocate Club, I think the biggest thing that we saw cause the comeback potential for Allocate Club, and that made Trelly and I say that Borscht was trolling, because they were, was we started to see things like, look at Final K right now, alone in duo, but pushing to the tier 2, maybe heading back to Teleporter. Last week, this would have been one person's in each lane, one guy's trying to 1v9, like Ratmilk actually is at the moment, and that's where things fell apart, because he started to give up picks, and Ratmilk, caught in the River's Rebuke, will give up pick to Krim. So Borscht, their task is now, of course, to win the game when they're ahead, but I guess to not repeat history.
And these are like bad deaths, because there's things for Mr. Play-by-Play to do. There's waves to push out. At this time, left purple's going to be spawning soon. Also tower damage for Pringles, but Borscht doesn't care about that. They want to take more fights.
The Mez should find a home onto Dashboard. Final case nearby, and below you got Pagon there for the damage as well. Life of the party equals death for Dashboard, and Pagon will get the credit. That tier 1 you mentioned for Pringles does go down, Mr. Play-by-Play, so they're getting there. The gold and Staff of Mirrodin. All right, I'm with it.
All right. I mean, he threes, he pulls the purification that Dashboard has, and then he threes him again.
Threes again.
Yeah, there's nothing Dashboard can do, and just like there's nothing Snatty can really do here, except, you know, get stuck in a corner, he's gonna die eventually. They're too far behind. They're not using enough to really even take the fights after. There's just too big of a gold discrepancy and XP discrepancy. But, you know, this entire time, in left lane, Pringles is farming.
Krim, dashed on, dead. Something so satisfying with the Scourge getting a last hit, and I'm sure Final K would say the same thing. Rapid damage on to Lairs. Baskin's doing numbers. A Baron's Brew for good measure. Lairs is just trying to go, but gets caught by the Plague and goes down. Duo lane, ult out, followed. That's going to be a dead Jingwei for sure after the Assassinate hits. And everything's falling apart now. Mr. Play-by-Play close to what should be an end. The wrap hits. Pagon's divine. Everybody's dead for Mr. Play-by-Play. Problem is, there's not too many minions mid. Maybe it's a mid Phoenix. You've got the Mantari. They got it.
At least Pagon's there to hit the Phoenix. We can be happy that they're planning.
True, he's
to
not
hit the
doing
Phoenix.
Pyromancer.
Not jumping in, waiting for Snatty to spawn. So they got that middle Phoenix down. They broke the base. Usually we'd be super ecstatic about the base being broke, but they probably could have broke it about 5 minutes ago. They probably could have done fire about 3 minutes ago. And now, after breaking the base finally, they're looking to back up, spend maybe some of their gold, look for the objective, or look for another pick maybe.
Jake misses the wrap. I will say Snatty, the sustain was kind of interesting to see, because with how far behind Snatty was, to be 1 level behind, fine, okay? Not too bad, but you're gonna need more than that. Look how much damage Pringles is tanking. Can't even step away from Jake. They will shut down the Baron, though, so even more shutdown gold. Mr. Play-by-Play keep running into. I mean, it's still over 10k. It's past uh-oh territory if you use the Malametric of uh-oh territory. Mr. Play-by-Play, they've got some little things going. They just have to find a lot more. And Snatty and Dashboard, they'll find the dirt. That's 31 kills now for Borscht.
And they're finding little things, and then on the opposite side of things, Borscht are just finding even more big things. Not much breathing room still for Mr. Play-by-Play. Still a very dire situation. Going back for Fire Giant. With this Fire Giant, pretty easily, Borscht can't end the game. Will they? Do they choose to? Do they opt to end the game, or do they want to kind of farm more kills? That's the question that's posed in front of Borscht now.
Right.
This lead is massive at this point. It's disgusting.
Airstrike works. Aegis works. Last hit missed.
Another miss.
Pringles walked into the wall. I don't think it would have gotten away anyway, but tough. And you know, I could have a compliment for everyone at Mr. Play-by-Play I've seen. I think back for I'm So Pringles, formerly known as Shinigami, there was a really nice solo kill onto Zapman in that scrumptious set. There's been stuff that looked good for Mr. Play-by-Play, but things are just unraveling in this game 1. And as you said, Borscht are getting closer to an end point. A big heal keeps Snatty alive. Actually, a 2-man knockup as well. Forces Rapdog to blink away. Final K might be dead, but Lairs ults into basket and goes down. Cannot survive the damage. Not even done yet. Oh no, Dashboard too. They're all just dropping one by one in Mr. Play-by-Play. I thought maybe Inbound, this would be the heroic hang on, this would be the troll point, but it looks like Borscht are cleaning things up. Now in the throne room, bringing back Pringles for the double kill for Pagon. Snatty now taking some damage, standing tall. Phoenix in solo. New target. At least Borscht are grouped.
They are. That is a good thing. They are grouped. They are pushing stuff. Still looking for picks, but they probably have to find one more pick before they'll ever look for an end. Then they get 2 that they were looking for, and now they're going to hit the Titan. They're going to win this first game.
Yep, they did it. Borscht did it. Finally. One more? Oh, I was rooting for you, Dashboard.
Then they'll have to Titan.
Borscht take game 1, 38-6. No trolling to be found, unlike last week versus K-Club. Say what you want. Borscht, clean can get, and as dominant as Dominic can get, and they take game 1. Remember, 2-0, and Borscht have a seat in the playoffs. Mr. Play-by-Play will fall to the last chance qualifier.
If that first game is telling us anything about the set, Malum, this is going to be the quickest 2-0 we might ever see. 0-24 duo lane. First death happens over there. It snowballs out of control. The Loki's just making plays in the jungle. And what do? They play through the Baron. They play through Jake. They play through Rat Milk. And they just kind of pressure. And no jungler presence on the right side was even needed. Final case solo Snatty, was it 2-3 times?
Yeah, I think it was 3 before the rotation started coming out.
Yeah, it's just a tough game all around by Mr. Play-by-Play.
All right, well, I'm sure Mr. Play-by-Play need a break. So, all right, everybody, take a quick 5, snack break, water break, and we'll come right back with game number 2.
Missing what you want. My brother's going down the drain. My sister's living the dream. But everybody's singing along. It's okay, we'll all soon we never really settle the score. Half the town screaming out in vain, the other half is fake, but everybody's singing along. It's okay, we'll all soon be gone. Hey, what's the matter with the bright red lights? Hey, in the moment when the world went blind, but everything's alright. We don't give a damn this time. Yeah. Everyone's a hypocrite. In this game we cannot win. Hey, what's the matter with the bright red lights? Hey, in the moment when the world went blind, but everything's alright. We don't give a damn this time.
And then I said, that's not Bacchus, that's Bilson's mother. That one always makes me laugh. But enough about my weekend. Hey, Gormizer, what's new with you?
Just picked up my SMITE 2 Founders Edition.
Very nice.
Purchased it on my preferred gaming platform just yesterday.
Nice skin.
It's Cacodemon Ymir. It comes with all SMITE 2 gods. Forever.
That's very cool, Gormizer, but that's nothing. Look at this. Night Stalker Neath and Ascension passes for 11 Alpha launch gods. What do you think?
Geez, that is really super. How'd a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
Can't believe that Dandy prefers Chelly's Founders Edition to mine.
Very nice. Impressive. Let's see JMax Founder Edition.
Look at that avatar, badge, and title. The tasteful thickness of Tier 5 Fallen Zeuskia. Oh my god, it even comes with Ascension passes for all 23 Alpha Gods.
Don't be like this psycho and upgrade your Founders Edition, so you don't miss out on Night Stalker Neath, Tier 5 Fallen Zeus, and Ascension passes for the first 23 gods. Upgrade today.
Hello and welcome on back to the SMITE 2 Founder Series. And speaking of Founders, grab your Founders Edition today. Experience the tasteful thickness of Tier 5 Fallen Zeus. That skin is insane in game. Plus, the value you get from the Founders Editions is just as fantastic. You can upgrade anytime. You can start off on the base edition, see if you like it, upgrade to deluxe, see if you like it, upgrade even further. You got God Pack, you got Ascension Passes. What more can you need? So grab your Founders Edition today in your platform of choice. You won't regret making that decision. And Inbound, I don't regret being here with you. It's still Malum as well. In game one, we got to have some fun. I think Borscht was having fun too. Mr. Play-by-Play definitely was not having fun, but regardless, game one happened.
And honestly, I don't think I can summarize it better than you just did. Borscht was having a lot of fun. Mr. Play-by-Play was not having fun. And it is every single player, every single lane. Borscht had fun. Very little fun found by Mr. Play-by-Play. Across the board, just finding solos. Awesome Jake and Rat Milk finding picks on the left side. Pagon getting solos. Pagon playing into the jungle. Baskin standing on tower lines. There is very little that you can say to kind of shore up the entire first game more than Borscht had fun and Mr. Play-by-Play didn't. That's just what it was.
Yeah, I mean, even numbers wise, 23,000 for Baskin, 23,000 for Pagon. At one point we saw Baskin willing to take a 1v3 between Phoenix and Tier 2 Tower, and it worked until the rest of the team got there. So obviously you have to do one thing. You know, a lot of people say the locker room kind of pep talk. You gotta you throw the whiteboard out, you never look at it again. So going into the game two, you have to forget game one happened. So what's the game plan? Is it entirely different? Scrap all the picks, scrap the game planning, or what do you do if you're Mr. Play-by-Play here?
Honestly, it's got to be unconventional plays. Like if this is the type of SMITE we're going to see from both of these teams playing pretty conventional comps, I think Mr. Play-by-Play has to do something that's just weird. It's off meta. Something like Anubis solo, which is really not that off meta, but that's the best idea.
Just doing something to throw Borscht off the game.
Something has to be done by Mr. Play-by-Play. If that is the traditional SMITE that we're going to see from Mr. Play-by-Play, that's not going to be enough to beat Borscht. They're going to have to play something different, something unique, something that we've really not seen too much. Maybe it is something like a CERN. How many times have you played against CERN in SMITE 2? Probably not nearly as many times as you've played against Jingwei. That's what's going to have to be done by Mr. Play-by-Play. Beyond that, maybe just trying to like sneak an OP character, take first side P's and B's, ban away something random just to kind of get rid of it, and then maybe try to pick the Fender, pick the Baron, and then pick weird things around that god. That's the best I got for you, Malum.
Well, we're good for picks and bans, so let's see what picks and bans has in store. We saw the Baron Fenrir kind of exist, but Amaterasu was the focus for Borscht. Mr. Play-by-Play with first pick this time. They control the path we'll take in P's and B's, but they got to do something different, and I'm with you, Inbound. I'm almost looking at in-game, too. I'm saying for minute 0, maybe look for an invade. Maybe even consider, which we have seen a time or two happen in SMITE, look at lane swaps, look at role swaps. Just do something different. It's do or die before you fall to the last chance qualifier, so you may as well attempt it. And Mr. Play-by-Play start with a Fenrir ban.
And if you're throwing away ban Fenrir from first side, I think that puts you just in a very weird spot, because this allows Borscht to ban away the Baron if they want, and then you're just playing a game of SMITE without the two best characters. They ban away the Odin, they're allowing you to play the Baron. Mr. Play-by-Play has kind of the ball in their court. Are they going to opt to play the Baron? This massively strong god.
Could get baited by the Alma.
Let's liven things up,
They
shall
lock
we?
in the Baron, but as you said, Alma's now available for Borscht.
Yeah, and Borscht kind of played to that from banning the Alma in game 1, which is the pick for Snatty as well. So if it gets through to the second phase, I imagine that we will see Mr. Play-by-Play grab it. But Borscht now, I also have a slight fear that Borscht might kind of go unconventional here too, because you talked about that being the requirement
right.
for Mr. Play-by-Play, but Borscht might say, all right, we can have some fun. Like, the Amaterasu, it's locked in, sure. If this ends up being Ama ADC, there's not a single part of me that's surprised.
100% you are correct. These are flex picks by Borscht right now. This is Ama flex, Anubis flex. There is a potential for this to be in just about any role. And you know, on a less funny note, that's kind of like a good thing about Borscht is they have a lot of players that can just play a lot of different things. Final K's played 2 different roles. You've had 2 different roles from Pegon, 2 different roles from Baskin. So there is like a bunch of different flex potential on this team, and that's kind of what makes them scary. They got that Ama, they got that Anubis. Assuming if they play at least semi-conventional, we have the Anubis for mid, the Ama for solo lane. We have another Hercules locked in by Snatty, which I didn't love it. You said we've not really seen a good Hercules performance yet, at least from what we've expected from all the tweets and all the streamers talking about how OP Herc is. It's really not lived up to the hype, so maybe I'm a little surprised with the Hercules, especially when we saw how well that Bellona performed. There was an opportunity to play that. Pairing it with the Loki, this Hercules, I like taking away the Loki, so at least you have like the second best jungler.
Plus, it could have been good into the Ama, assuming, again, Borscht go traditional. Bellona's decent into that matchup. Not amazing, but you can... I've always liked seeing... I think I've even seen Snatty do this. Playing Bellona to counter the Amaterasu, maxing the Scourge. Could have been a lot of different ways you could go. Borscht, though, they lock up the Hades and the CERN. So, something you were looking for Mr. Play-by-Play, Borscht grab up, and I think 4 picks in is pretty safe to go with the route that we were talking about, that it looks like Borscht... They're flexing their roles and flexing their talent, and they're looking to have a little bit of fun this game.
Yeah, there is very few parts of me that could claim what spots Borscht comps are going towards right now. There's a very easy way to say, you know, Hades is going to be solo, Ama support, Anubis mid, ADC CERN, Jungle Thana. That could happen. Or it could be completely flipped on its head, completely different picks. Nuwa locked in by Mr. Play-by-Play and the On Her. They're going back to the Nuwa. It's a mid laner that's going to lose lane. You're going to be sitting under tower. So somebody in a side lane has to win. They have to win. Last time the Hercules didn't win and the dual lane got ganked. Something's got to change. You pick the Loki. Maybe that allows you to play that side of the map. However, Borscht kind of picks this really interesting kind of early game counter into Loki. Thana has a really easy time early into Loki. Can get his invis. Really no threat onto him for the kill. When it hits 5, it becomes a little iffy, a little stat checky who's farther ahead. But early game, Ratmilk can kind of run the map on this Thana. And if he gets that lead like he did on the Loki last game, this Thana might go 15-0.
Borscht have a lot of silences. I'm kind of down to grab some scepters of, or not scepters, but go Screeching Gargoyles and just have 5 silences on your team. Have fun. You pick 3. You know, you talked about it being a counter too. And one thing we talked about with Mr. Play-by-Play in the previous game was they want to dive. There's no diving Borscht right now, especially early on. Like you said, they have a counter for kind of everything that you could dive, especially if the Hades were to go solo or support and we see a tankier Hades. I don't know what you're diving. I don't know how you could make it work.
Yeah, I think Mr. Play-by-Play's comp kind of switches up this game. No longer have like the Mordred in the jungle. You have like a more of a poke oriented Loki, a little bit of all in. I think Mr. Play-by-Play's comp is going to be more of a traditional front to back comp. Look for picks. They have still a little bit of, you know, side lane pick potential with the Loki, with the Nuwa. It's just what I saw last game left a really sour taste in my mouth from what to expect from Mr. Play-by-Play. Again, it is win or go home. This is like the last chance. If you don't win this game here, if you're Mr. Play-by-Play, you're going to the last chance qualifier. You want to try to avoid that, but Malum, this might just be like this Borscht team might just be too strong for them.
And my thing too, you got to kind of pick up as you go. That's something Garth's Goblins have done so well. As they've played through the bracket, even in their losses, they're picking up something and saying, all right, I'm adding this to my notebook, right? I'm learning this for my next matchup. Mr. Play-by-Play's had such a weird bracket. I don't know if they've had the opportunity to do that too often, not since their week 1 matchup. So going against Borscht here, it's almost like you're playing for that learning experience, but we're in week 5 and you're on the cusp of playoffs. You're trying to go to Vegas. It's sold out. It's a huge prize pool. There's all these things, but it's Mr. Play-by-Play who's like still trying to figure themselves out in this scenario. And I think that's probably the hardest thing even if you were to zoom out and kind of try to ignore the situation, the God matchups here, and even the play we saw on map, I don't know how Mr. Play-by-Play can get over the mentals of this next matchup. I think that's maybe even a bigger key, and it would impress me to see them play normal almost. So if they can compete and at least make this a game, even if they still were to lose, I'd be genuinely impressed.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Mr. Play-by-Play, at the minimum, for me to be happy, like, quote unquote, happy with this set from their perspective, they at least have to compete in this game. Last game, they didn't compete. Last game was an absolute shellacking. They basically just did nothing the entire game except get ran over. If this game, they can load in. I mean, as you said, this is like the last chance. There isn't really a ton of stuff to learn, but you can still go through the last chance qualifier and, you know, appear in Vegas from there. So there is still things to learn from this set, but all it takes, and this is like a multifaceted thing that needs to happen. It's going to take a little bit of trolling from Borscht, a really good play from Mr. Play-by-Play, and then just two games of this. So it's going to take a lot. But it's not insurmountable. We've seen teams get smoked game one, just look completely dominated. And then game two, and it's just a completely different team. Maybe it was just an uncomfortable comp that they drafted. Maybe they weren't happy with the Emoja in that comp. Maybe the Mordra just felt forced. Whatever it was, maybe they're just happier with this Loki or something. It could just be a completely different game too. So it's not completely counting out Mr. Play-by-Play. It's just, there is like this feeling about Borscht's team with just how good these players are, how much we've seen from them through their SMITE careers, that it just feels like they're going to be winning this game. But that makes me want to go to this game 3 even more. That makes me want to see Mr. Play-by-Play compete, because as you said, just seeing some life from Mr. Play-by-Play will give me a good feeling from this, and I think they can take it into last chance qualifiers and compete, because there's a lot of good players on this team. We've seen a lot from Snatty. Lairs has been in the SPL. He's done very well in the SPL. Krim has been like that next man up mid laner for a while now. He can take that step very soon. Dashboard Pringles, 2 more great dual laners. There's talent here. They just need a little bit more time, and maybe it's just like weird timing. Last chance qualifiers is maybe the spot for it, but Malum, it could start here, and I kind of hope, I want to see something here from them.
You got to hope that Borscht get overconfident too. We mentioned it with the Allocated Club matchup, but that happened in game 2 against Allocated Club, where Borscht got really overconfident. And matter of fact, you know, speaking of players who were next man up, Rapnilk has been that next man up for a lot of people since Worlds qualifiers for the previous and final season of SPL. And Rapnilk is now on a team surrounded by huge names and has performed great in a lot of aspects, but also has had moments where it's like, all right, what are we doing? Last week, we saw Rapnilk not once, but twice, Thanatos ult into 5 people. 17 kills, you would have thought maybe you can get 1 or 2, but it was an amateur tournament type of play in a bigger moment, and both times it failed despite how ahead Rapnilk was. So there's a lot of things, like you said, if Borscht make a mistake, if Borscht troll a little bit, Mr. Play-by-Play have to capitalize massively and then grow from there. But I'm with you. I think there's always that potential, and I think leaving the door open for Mr. Play-by-Play to going in with a clean slate almost is definitely doable. And for Borscht, for me, it's you can play the funny picks, the flex picks. You can even have a little bit of fun on the map. I want to see them play clean because they haven't had the cleanest bracket. I think Trelly said it last week, but they haven't fully earned the right to kind of go that easy lackadaisical route. Not quite yet.
I mean, you've got to earn it. That's what you have to do. And if I'm on the other side of things, if I'm on Borscht side of things, I want to see them stomp this game. If I'm fine, okay, if I'm Pegon, I want to just stomp this game in 20 minutes. And that's what I expect to see in this game.
For sure. Well, can they do it is the big question. Game number 2 is ready to go. So let's head on to the battleground and see if Mr. Play-by-Play have what it takes to stay alive, or Borscht are locking down their spot in the playoffs. It's Malum, Inbound, and Doug to bring you the action here in game number 2. I'm looking across. A lot of normalcy back. You've got the Ama solo, Hades support. Honestly, least crazy route we could have gone. A lot of combat blinks though for Borscht. That's kind of the biggest change I noticed. No shells this time. We're having fun. We'll see how those blinks are utilized.
It actually seems like a little bit of a grouping here. So they're taking your route of things of, let's kind of switch it up a little bit. Let's just see what happens. They opt to not really take a fight. They just kind of are standing around trying to take an early fight. But, you know, Jake's not in a great spot here.
Already impaled. Damaged a lot. Health Chalice is popped. And you didn't have the
That's really
Hercules
good.
super close, but you got him really poked out. You've got Borscht a little bit mixed around. You can now also aggress in the jungle if you're Mr. Play-by-Play, which might be the biggest thing gained from this. They are going to go to their own purple and actually be chased out by Borscht. Not how I expected that to go, given the start.
And I think they're just trying to keep them off of this purple buff so that they can play for pushing the wave, because that's what CERN does really well. That's what Hades does really well. They have these abilities that can do a lot of damage, but they're opting to just take this early trade, and it's working out really well for the side of Borscht. And now they're able to kind of get those first autos onto this wave. They can group it up for the Hades. They can group it up for the CERN. Dash is going to have to make a really good play here to kind of win lane, and hitting that ability is a good start.
Feels like a lot of missed opportunities already for Mr. Play-by-Play, but they did kind of clean it up towards the end. The dual lane will be one to watch. Also got to reference solo consistently this game. Remember, 3 times Snatty got soloed by Final K in the previous game, and Hercules versus Bologna. This time you've got Amaterasu, and we'll see if it goes a little bit smoother for the Herc, who did have a couple of decent moments once late game arrived. The problem was that took forever to arrive.
And when it did arrive, it was still just too late. There was no real chance for him to do anything. And it kind of seems like he's playing this laning phase just like a little, you know, not nervous necessarily, but just super careful. He's not opting to trade. He's not looking for the plucks. He's not looking to kind of get a slight edge in laning phase. And I think that's something that Snatty does really well. So to see him play so timid against, you know, another laner, it says a lot about Final K.
Baskin ganked, a lot of damage, no kill. Krim was a bit far back in the nuance to follow up with any damage, was fully on the wave. But I'm with you on the comment there about Snatty. Currently beating Final K in the poke battle, at least for the time being. Apathy can definitely be the end. No apathy in the mid lane, fighting only. 2-man stun is good, and I'll get layers away. But I've heard you even talk about this in previous SPL matchups Inbound, where if you're up against a team that you feel is better, that has you feeling nervous, the worst thing you can do is play under your towers. You still have to play the game to compete.
Yeah, I mean, you pick your gods, you pick your characters, you pick your matchups, but you still have to play the game. It doesn't matter what the matchups say. It doesn't matter if, you know, you lose this 1v1, this 2v2, whatever it is. You still have to play out the game. And kind of a weird play by Jake proxying Pegon, but it gets them pressure in lane, but it puts his ADC behind, but they're allowed to, you know, zone them from this. And because of where at this point Ratmilk's playing, there's kill potential here.
Yeah, Layers isn't coming over, too poked out to commit, and Pringles is now low. Jake chasing out, there's the jump away, but you've traded around. You can't even get to your tower. And now the Thanatos is here. Pegon turns the corner, Aegis out, Shell 2, but it won't matter. First blood for Borscht. Awesome Jake gets the credit.
And I don't know what it is, but I question a lot of the things that Jake ends up doing, and then it just works out. And it's like, that was genius. That proxy was genius. Yes, it puts his ADC a little bit far behind, but you can't walk into that because of how they ended up proxying it, how Pegon ends up positioning. It ends up being just a really, really smart play overall.
Yeah, Pringles couldn't go to their own tower.
Yeah, they literally just dove him right after, and it could have been punished for sure, but Lairs isn't there. That's a 3v2. They get the poke, and then they just end up diving him. And while it was a great, you know, try by Dashboard and Pringles to live that gank, they still just die.
Not the start Mr. Play-by-Play wanted, and definitely not the start they kind of needed, but we'll see how it continues to unravel. This is the point where things got out of hand. Borscht got that first pick, and they kept ganking, and they kept getting ahead, and they kept stealing away farm, which Jake will be unsuccessful in doing and taking away from Layers. A nice response to save their own speed, but you still got Ratmilk and Jake nearby. Looks like Layers will take that victory and walk away for the time being. But look, Ratmilk is still here in duo. This is what Borscht did in the previous game. They're recommitting again. Wild Hunt out, 2 polymorphs and damage on the dashboard. You gotta be careful. Ratmilk has ultimate. It's a buff stolen, and Mr. Play-by-Play can only watch.
And again, good pressure out by Borscht there. They are just knowing how they need to be positioning, how they need to be kind of placing themselves around the map to make it so that there's just not much that Mr. Play-by-Play can do. As you said, they got the purple buff, but at what cost, really? They're still standing under tower. They're still just kind of getting bullied out. Are they living this game? For sure. This game is in a great spot, especially compared to the last game. Yeah. But where are you going to be able to make plays? Your dual lane is getting stomped. in like the actual fighting. And then in mid lane, you have a Nuwa. So really all you can do, especially if that's happening, you're burning double ultimates and you don't even hit them. There's kill potential now here for Pegon and Jake. Like, where are you gonna make plays?
Jake down below half. Pringle's still throwing hands, but Dashboard's already backed up. They open the door for Pegon to get aggressive. A dash in. Now Ratmilk to the sky. Look out. Backup's on the way. And Mr. Play-By-Player grouped up. The up down will get caught. And Pringles gets deleted. Add Dashboard to that tally if he cannot get away. But Ratmilk will have a double kill. The perfectly timed ganked. The trust from Borscht. It's all there.
And it's just a disaster play by Mr. Play-By-Play. They try to look for the kill onto Jake, missing both of their ultimates, and then really good awareness by Ratmilk and by that dual lane to look for that kill. They got the double kill, and now again, doubling down on dual lane you can't play through. You can't play through mid. You know who it comes down to? At this point, it's just Snatty. Is Layers going to be able to make plays on the solo side of the map, gank this Amaterasu, kill her? Currently, she's got Sansa time in book. There is kill potential availability over here, but it still has to be done. They can't have Ratmilk over there to make it a 2v2 because he's so far ahead. It's still a weird spot for them to be in, but again, it's better than last game, so you got to be happy at some point.
Pretty significantly so. Duo lane still in trouble, though. That stayed the same from game number 1. Jump in from Pringles, looking for the pick on the Pegon. Damage is there. Impale 2, and Pegon goes down. But Jake is still throwing us. Look who's on the way once again. It's Ratmilk again. The up-down damage going to be good, but this time Life at the Party is the answer. Jake falls. And actually, Krim picks up a double in mid at the same time. And Ratmilk goes down, but he will not quite get. He still throws, but that scythe won't find a home, and Pringles makes it happen. So somehow, some way, Mr. Play-By-Play walk away, tying up the game.
What is happening?
How did Krim do that mid?
He solos Basket in mid and then gets the ultimate onto the left side, or I guess Lairs is actually probably there to get the gank onto Basket, and he actually ends up just getting the kill onto Krim.
Crazy.
But I mean, at this point, this is exactly what you wanted. Your Nuwa is now in a phenomenal spot. You're starting to win that duo side of the map, even with Ratmilk making a lot of plays over there. And Snatty's winning this 1v1. So this is great news across the board. This is what you exactly wanted to see. You have 3 winning lanes instead of 0.
All from one wild fight. And Mr. Play-By-Play looks like they might be interested in fighting again. Borscht now dashing in. Frenzy pop from Pringles. Getting great autos on the Jake and almost bringing down the Hades. But you jump in aggressive yet again. Maybe you don't need to. You have the autos and they're good. Dashboard will get the credit. But the Mr. Play-By-Play duo, they took game 1 personally. And they're not even done. Might find another pick onto Pegon. Auto's good. Impale won't find a home. Dashboard dives, but is alone. And the Baron's Brew from downtown gets him.
Love to see that. I love seeing Baron's Brew getting played like that, getting that last hit. It's such a good feeling when Baron's Brew is the thing that kind of cleans up a kill. But again, another great fight in duo lane by Dash and by Pringles. But looks like ultimate's getting traded. Maybe he looks to go in again. You said this is a worry with Ratmilk.
Waiting for it, lands, finds the stun, gets the damage across, should be able to find one, has help from the shard. There's the first. Can you find the sustain? Do you have the backup? The blink away is good. And Jake makes Pringles pay. So while Ratmilk still plays risky on the Thanatos, this time walks away with a couple picks.
Mr. Play-By-Play is punching back, and I think that's the difference this game than last game. They're actually taking swings instead of just eating the punches and just hoping they live through them. They're trading, and that's what I like to see. It's not just, let's just give this up and try to steal it. Let's just try to sneak this here. It is, they're trying to fight this 2v2. Let's take them head on. And so far, as bad as that first 2v2 fight was in duo where Jake looks for that proxy, ever since like level 5, Dashboard and Pringles have kind of gotten... They've kind of gotten the upper hand on Pegon and Awesome Jake, so if they keep that up, again, more winning lanes. The Nuwa doesn't have to rotate and can kind of make plays. It's looking up for Mr. Play-By-Play.
Pringles has a lot of red jerseys lurking. Will he have enough help in the form of Dashboard? Ratmilk to the sky, the landing not going to find the execute. They might not even find Dashboard, and Borscht do not. I can't believe the duo lane gets away with that one. Mr. Play-By-Play will live to see another day. Notable, with all this chaos on the map, Ratmilk being a part of all 6 kills of Borscht, Lair is still only a part of 1 kill total for Mr. Play-By-Play as we come up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, Lair's mostly looking to farm. Got that 1 kill in mid onto Baskin, which was a nice pick. Jake, no ultimate available. Playing a little too far forward, but no worry, they don't look for the commit. Speaking of Jake, though, a different build for sure. The Cosmic Horror first item, an item that requires intelligence to get the full value of the item. At this point, it's just got to be a stack stick because he needs 300 intelligence to get that extra 10 cooldown. For now, he's just getting the intelligence and the 15% or the 15 cooldown rate. So strange pickup by Jake. I think if you wanted a cooldown intelligence item, I think that Mirren that he picked up in the first game makes a little bit more sense. So worried and weird, but still.
If Mr. Play-by-Play are in lane, they're fighting and they're ulting. That's been their game plan. And I guess it's somehow starting to work. Frenzy popped. Pringles wants the fight with Jake, finds the autos. The ult and the dash away is good for Awesome Jake for the time being, but Mr. Play-by-Play is still stepping up, so much so that once again, history repeats, and Ratmilk is here, but this time will not go overly aggressive. Looks like Borscht call it off, and Mr. Play-by-Play are not punished for the 2 ultimates.
And so far, an interesting game in the jungle. Lairs is mostly just perma-farming, but he's a level 11 Loki. The new mostly just farming. Level 13 now. Currently, I mean, even Dashboard and Pringles, who have lost a few of those 2v2s and gotten ganked a few times, are still in a very manageable spot. Looking to pull this Gold Fury, pushing that lead. Maybe a bit early for this.
It looks like they realized the same thing. Look who's around the corner. Awesome Jake, the dash in. 3-10 group gets the silence, gets the damage, but doesn't have the ultimate online, which would have been perfect. Maybe he doesn't even need it because Baskin's got one. It is responded to by Krim, who finds the killing spree while they're at it. Now Lair is blinking forward, looking for Baskin. No instant kill. And that wall is doing work right now for Borscht to keep him away. And Fine-OK is here and pops Pringles for the dazzling offensive. Is that enough to dissuade the fight? Now Snatty's here, but very late, and looking to still force an engagement. Do you have enough damage back up for Mr. Play-by-Play? I don't think you do. And Snatty and Krim are still kind of just stepping up. Nobody's fully disengaged. And even now, Snatty's still chasing out the current.
And we see a 1v1 turn into a 2v2, turn into a 3v3, 4v4, and then we just get this full-on 5v5. But not a massive win for either team. Mostly just kind of like a swing here or there, but no one's really getting knocked out from that play. The Gold Fury pulled, but again, just a little too early, I think, for that pull. No real big opportunity to make that play. It is a kind of like a heat check. Is anybody paying attention to the Gold Fury? Are they looking at it? As soon as somebody shows up, they're gone. I liked the call, and I liked the instantly get off of it. And I also liked seeing the rotation from Snatty. It shows that they're willing to take these fights. And again, they're not just going to kind of give up on things. I am a little worried about the builds that Mr. Play-by-Play is kind of going for. They have 3 anti-heal items already. They're fine items, Malum, but they're not the most efficient. Divine is, I mean, solid intelligence and then anti-heal. Again, Onk, solid stats and then anti-heal. But they're not great stats. You combine that to the great stats that you're getting from Baskin's Soul Gem, from the whatever Pegon ends up opting for. I think that's the Braggies with those 2 items. They're a lot more efficient with their items. It's maybe a little, I'm putting a little bit too much on it, but 3 anti-heal items this early means your damage is
you're getting the utility to amplify the stats you've purchased. Not going utility first leaves you without the stats to amplify.
Yeah, and you're worried, do you have the damage to actually kill? But the CC on a Pegon.
You've got that damage. Do you have the kill? Fire Shard's out. Pegon dropped. First one down to Pringles. Awesome Jake heads for the hills. Ratmilk doesn't even have time to engage that time round, and Mr. Play-by-Play will make the call for Gold Fury. The closest to contest is Ratmilk, but it would be a 1v5, so that's not the call from Borscht. It's a concession, and Mr. Play-by-Play gets the first Gold Fury of the game. They're leading 9-8 at 14 minutes. They've got a 2k gold lead. If you saw game 1, you might be feeling like you're in the Twilight Zone looking at the scoreboard.
I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, seeing how well Mr. Play-by-Play is playing this game comparatively to that first one.
No way.
Looking for the steal. Sunder secures it, thank goodness. That was
Nobody's
very,
off
very
the team.
close.
Everyone's good. Roster spots locked down.
Yeah, he secures it with the Sunder. Perfect, what he needed. But still, it's a... I'm still worried with what Borscht is doing. So far, it's a lot of fighting, but they're not winning the fights in this game. They're not really looking for anything else. Borscht, while they are still in a fine spot, this game is 1,000 gold. It's whatever. What I'm seeing from their comp is kind of just taking scuffle fights and hoping that Rat Milk can kind of clean them up. And so far, it's not working out. As the game goes later and later into the game, their comp doesn't get much better in terms of how easy it is to use. It is still a very good scrap comp because you have Rat Milk on the Thana, you have Alma to chase kills, but I'm a little worried about how their team fights are going to look, Malin.
I'm there with you. It feels like it's like we talked about. You drafted with this idea in your head of how the game was going to go, that you've now gone in and been completely thrown off. I'm also still staring at Jake's build, now grabbing the Staff of Mirrodin, so not tanky. We'll see if it works out for Jake. Already good damage on the Krim with the ultimate, but the Fire Shard response is enough to slow it down. Matter of fact, this is an engage. Mr. Play-by-play with the life of the party. The Loki could not find a pick in time, and Dashboard will pay the price to find okay. A land down from Santos won't find anything, but now you've got eyes on Loki, who steps up and blinks into Baskin in front of everybody and gets away with it too. Lair is playing Loki to the T. Now you've got Snatty here. Boulder out, finds good damage, steps to the side, almost finds fine okay. That might be the end for Mr. Play-by-play in terms of picks, but they definitely went out on the actual presence post-fight.
The more I watch these fights and the more that I'm looking at the builds that are coming out from Borscht, the worse the outlook is getting. CERN has Blink into a comp that has the CC of Hercules, Loki, Nua if he's close enough, and then Baron. That is way too much CC, where if you get hit by anything, you're dead before you're able to blink. That's a worry. Jake's going full damage. Krim's gonna get cleaned up here. A little bit of an overstay, but maybe a trade actually by Snatty.
Sunder as well, that'll confirm it. So pick up for the Hearth. Snatty slash line is a complete turnaround from game number 1, now 101 when you compare it. It's gorgeous. Pringles looking for the 1v1 with Jake, finding okay damage, but won't test the jump in this time. 10 minutes ago, 100%. Pringles is jumping in there.
Yeah, it's a timing thing. It's like, oh, I gotta take the foot off the troll pedal a little bit. Gotta focus up. Gotta realize I probably can't jump in here when I don't know where anyone is. And that's a good, thing to see, because honestly, we've not seen it from Borscht so far. Borscht is still kind of just running it down, and with their builds, even with their relics, even it feels like they're kind of just playing goof around, which is, you said game 2 is the worry for this team. Mel, we're in game 2 and I'm worried for this team for what they're doing.
Fights in each lane. Snatty with a 1v2, getting lasered down, but not quite dead. And not in risk of an execute, and will have the heal. So solo lane safe. Dual lane. Land down from Rat Milk. Damage. Perfect. And Pagon with 1. Desert's Fury not going to bring down Rat Milk. Pagon with 2. You got the Loki rotation out. Will that matter? Solo lane Snatty still getting chased as well. Forced back behind the tier 1 tower. The lane split for Borscht right now is actually working pretty well. Jake dashes in onto Lairs, who will invis away. So tier 1 should fall in duo and maybe even in solo. And Borscht pretty quickly with a turnaround on the map state.
Still rather even. I think at this point, we've got the 1 gold fear for the side of Mr. Play-by-play. It was a nice fight that allowed them to get it, but they're not really, like we're speaking positively about Mr. Play-by-play. I think it's positivity based on how bad game 1 went. This game is basically just a mess state. This gold fear is going to be going over to the side of Borscht. They're going to be having a slightly bigger lead than they had, but there is positives to the side of Mr. Play-by-play also, because while yes, this is maybe like trades back and forth, I think we're both in agreement that how Borscht is playing and how their 5v5 is going to look, it doesn't scale all that well. They're going to have to look for picks. They're going to have to play like sloppy fights, which, I mean, it could happen. It's obviously something that's happened before, where really bad fights, really good 1v1 stuff might happening now.
A lot of ults dropped. So far, advantage looking Mr. Play-by-play in terms of damage. You got Rat Milk in the sky. Can he find a pick on the landing? You've already got a disengage. Mr. Play-by-play, but Rat Milk finds the back line and handles Krim. Looks at Dashboard and will find the double kill. Borscht cleaning it up when it matters around the Pyromancer. Snatty, too tanky to fall. The Pyro should be secured.
And exactly the fights that Borscht want, which is just very weird scuffles where nobody really thinks it's going to be a 5v5 fight. There's no thought of a rotation there by Pringles, and unfortunately his team looks for that fight on the Pyro. They lose Pyro, they lose Fire Giant, and that even game that we talked about not too long ago, still rather close, but usually you give about 5,000 gold worth of stats to this Fire Giant team. They're going to be able to push down towers, they're going to be able to push their lead even more. it's a worry for Mr. Play-by-Play because who's going to be able to match Rat Milk at this point in the game? Maybe Lairs, but that's a very soft maybe. Who's going to be able to shut down Baskin at this point? Again, it's really just Lairs. And if Lairs is forced to shut down everyone, then that's just not realistic.
Especially not with a Loki who essentially wants to play like a housefly. Not trying to go in and take the 1v5 at any given point. And Lairs already has shown the patience. I mean, even build-wise is building towards farming at level 18 and fighting in the jungle. Yeah, and more anti-heal being stacked up.
They have 5 things of... Okay. Malum, sorry for interrupting you. They have 5 things of anti-heal at 20 minutes. Guys, we don't need this much. Most of these fights are happening. They're going to be hit with all 3 of them. Nua ult procs it on everyone. The same thing with Onk. It's on everyone. We don't need all these anti-heals. We can opt for actual good statted items.
Fine, okay, forcing the fight. Life of the party is the response, and it's doing okay damage, but Dashboard has fallen with an execute range, and Rat Milk not missing right there. First pick already in the fight. Remember, that's how Borscht want to fight. They want to find picks early, and they do it this time around. And now they're postured in the jungle. The anti-heal didn't do much to dissuade that time. I got 2 things written down we're going to see in ranked games this next week. We're going to see Final K's Bologna, and we're going to see a lack of anti-heal, and I'm going to blame you.
Okay, yeah, guys, anti-heal's good. Don't get it twisted. Anti-heal's good. It's just not that much. Pegon gets hit by the
Whoa, that's real good too!
Same with Hades.
That's a double. A real good double. What a pick by Mr. Play-by-Play. What a setup from Snatty. What a close from ISO Pringles with a triple kill.
And that's just the issue with having these blinks on your Hades and on your turn. If you get hit by the Hercules knockup, you're dead before the CC even ends. That's how much CC Hercules has now with the buff to his ultimate. Malum, his ult is a knockup also. If you get hit by the pluck and then the dash and then the knockup, that's 2 seconds where you can't do anything and you're displaced. I would rather have seen a beads by Pegon. I don't mind it by Jake. You're a playmaking support. You want to look for plays. I get it. I think Pegon had to opt for the beads.
That last fight really kind of left me shell-shocked. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, like you said, Mr. Play-by-Play's never looked bad this game. A lot of it's comparatively, but that last fight looked great. Can this one look good too? You've already forced Final K's ultimate out. Rat Milk is lurking. Last time that Final K ult led into an execute on Dashboard. It will not be the case this time. But Gold Fury, about to spawn, will be the second one, whoever takes it.
It seems to be just a setup at this point. 5v5. No one really is still having this massive advantage. Yes, they got the Fire Giant, but what did they get with it? They got a tier 1, maybe? So they got 1 tier 1 with this Fire Giant. It's only on Rat Milk and Final K still, and it's not for that much longer. So they're going to be able to get this Gold Fury, but again, they're not pushing their lead, especially compared to last game. 4K at 22 minutes is an irrelevant amount of gold. It is 1 component of your entire build. It is maybe a second, like a tier 2 component. That's just about it. That's not making these fights unwinnable. You know what is kind of making these fights a lot harder, Malum? 5 things of anti-heal that just aren't stat efficient. I'm going to keep beating into that because it is ridiculous that we don't need this much anti-heal. What is going to be more efficient is just items that have good stats. That is my biggest worry right now for Play-by-Play.
Jibba focus, by the way, now on Hades, just to update that build. Pyromancer up, dash in for Final K. Here we go again. Borscht want to repeat the same fight that's been working non-stop. Life of the party, the response. This might set up Dashboard to be low for an execute. That's been the play. But what about Awesome Jake, who got low and way to the front line? Will go down. The Rat Milk already has 1 to the sky. Gonna find the second on the land down. Sees Lairs, gets the damage, gets the triple kill. Rat Milk on Thanatos is just too good for Mr. Play-by-Play to handle.
And again, what a phenomenal play by Rat Milk, cleaning up with a lot of these fights. And he's waiting for his team to go in. You said last week he just wanted to go in 1v5. That's not the case this game. He is waiting for the fights to set up. He's waiting for CC to be used. He's waiting for players to get low before he starts trying to make plays. And it's resulting in him being kind of the reason Borscht is in the spot they're in, because currently Jake goes in, he is just trying to trade as much of his health as he can with the enemy. It's working out because he's getting Crim low enough, he's getting Pringles low enough, he's getting Dashboard low enough that Rat Milk can threaten. And so far, that's Jake's job. Jake's job is just to poke out as much as possible. Malum, can you give us an update on that Hades build? What is that? No intelligence on that last item?
I know, I can't believe it. It's almost like you're building Take a Talisman of Purification. Coming out for Awesome Jake.
And
I guess the 3
Finally.
intelligence items was the play.
All he needed was those first 3, and now that he's got some CDR, he's got some of that intelligence, he can now opt into some defense, and he's building into even more defense with that tier 2 buckler, physical protections, magical protections. Maybe
Chef
he's
hat
going
on.
to be tanky at this point, Malum. Maybe he can live some of the damage that Mr. Play-by-Play is throwing at him, because at this point, Krim is pretty massive. We're talking about a level 20 Nuwa, 5 items, excuse me. We'll have the starter soon. Also with Pringles, he's got 4 items. Yes, both of them have 1 item that's anti-heal. That's not going to be the best item they could have had in that spot. Again, I'm going to beat into it. It's ridiculous. We don't need 5 things of anti-heal. However, still, we're getting to the point where if Jake goes in at a bad spot, he will get blown up. And he's got to be smart with his positioning.
Could see it here. Could see trouble for Awesome Jake. CC'd it out, but dashes away. Always watch on the map where the Thanatos is, I think, is the big thing that both we as spectators can learn, and Mr. Play-by-Play, I'm sure, is aware of, because Ratmilk's been on it. And once again, Borscht looking for opportunity in the jungle, and Ratmilk pretty far away. There's the engage from Jake. The ultimate's going to find a lot. Is that enough setup? Well, you have the backup coming out from Borscht. Pagon's already got 1, but Snatty looks forward and finds Jake, but now Ratmilk is here and punishes Snatty for going too far. It's a 2-for-1 favoring Borscht.
And Jake, again, does exactly what's needed. He pokes them down just enough that Ratmilk is able to clean up the fights. Snatty was forced too far forward. They win the fight, and now they're pulling this Fire Giant.
Ratmilk around the side. He got the whole back line in front of him, and he's got damage on all of them to the sky instantaneously. Won't find that one as Fine OK will get the credit, but sure sees Krim. I mean, who? Was there anybody even there? Deicide. Borscht make it happen.
Absolute ridiculous plays by Ratmilk in this entire game. He is playing patient, and I love to see Ratmilk when he's playing patient. He's not looking for the engage. 14 kills this game by Ratmilk. Malum, this set in general, Ratmilk has played very, very well, but this game speaks to me a lot more because it wasn't just a stop. He's the reason that this game is as close as it, I mean, it's not close.
Doing it again. Why not add another 15 for Ratmilk? Solo Phoenix down, mid Phoenix on tap. Snatty up, has to buy at least 10 seconds for any backup to arrive. 12 till you've got Pringles. Stuns out, dashed on, execute, bang! And with that execute, Borscht lock their spot down in the playoffs.
And definitely a tougher game too by Borscht. Mr. Play-by-Play fought back. They were taking fights in duo lane. Their 2v2 is winning. But when it came down to it, I think it was a little bit more of how they were playing the map and taking these fights that Mr. Play-by-Play wasn't ready for and then forcing them to take them. That's kind of how Borscht won this game. It wasn't just a stomp all the way through. It was, we've got a 4v3 here. We're doing this. Either fight us or we're going to take it. And a lot of the times, it felt like Mr. Play-by-Play forced themselves into taking just really awkward fights. It was like every fight that Borscht offered to them, Mr. Play-by-Play took, which, granted, much better than game 1, which no fight was taken until the game was already over. But you have to kind of pick and choose the fights that you take. Mr. Play-by-Play, they can find a spot between game 1 and game 2, choosing fights that they think are good and not just fighting everything and not fighting nothing. I think they'll be really well off in that last chance qualifier.
I was going to say the same thing because we talked about learning, right? What a matchup to take away from, because you didn't take Borscht to the distance. I wouldn't go that far, but you actually brought a game to Borscht. You made them play. And if you go back, they did the same thing to Scrumptious in their game 2 in the very first week. So that's from the beginning to the end of Swiss. Mr. Play-by-Play had a little bit of life to them and a lot of fight to them for sure, and a couple strong performances around the board. I loved the aggression from the duo lane that we were talking about early on in the game for Mr. Play-by-Play. I think it's, in a weird way, they kind of go from this expected stomp we were all looking forward to, now for me they're probably one of my top teams to look at in the last chance qualifier.
Yeah, and I would echo that sentiment. I still think this team is very talented. They've got a bunch of very good players. They just have to learn, and as you said, this is a great game to learn from, great set to learn from. Applying that in the last chance qualifier is going to do great things for this team. And both of us have now just said it. That's a team to watch for in the last chance qualifiers.
100%. Let's take a look at the stats from that game and get a wrap up of what was I mean, that was a good one. It's so funny. That game it's weird when you talk about a game being so good that you kind of almost forget game 1. I genuinely was forgetting game 1, and I was starting to really, truly consider Mr. Play-by-Play in a position to win that game, and stats reflected.
Yeah, and especially in that early portion where they were dominating that 2v2. If Lairs is able to match Ratmilk even a little bit and be in that 3v3 instead of a 2v3, that could have been a different game. Lairs opted for that more farming style, which he is kind of, I think, a little bit more known for. He likes to farm for that little later portion. If he just fights Ratmilk a few more times, maybe picks like that. Like, imagine if we had a Mordred in this second game to fight that 3v3 on that side of the map. I think it makes a lot more sense. Unfortunately, though, you can't change your comp when you see what the enemy is planning on doing, but again, I liked seeing the fight back from play-by-play. Snatty handled himself in that solo lane. Was kind of bullying Final K out a few times also, so I liked there.
I'm with you, and I gotta say, I've had the fortunes of casting Ratmilk's Thanatos for a very long time, a few years now, going back to the amateur scene, and it kind of frightens me seeing Borscht go to playoffs, knowing Thanatos has really only been getting better with how metas have been shaping up in Smite 2. To know how good he is in that character. One tricks won't get you far, and Ratmilk's proved to be good on Sasano as well, but in the beginning of Founder Series, the reason I bring it up, there was so much talk of how good the Borscht roster was and will Ratmilk perform. And, you know, game 1 against Mr. Play-by-Play, I don't think it's a good reference. Game 2 against Alec Club, same thing, but that was a real game. Borscht faced a real challenge, and Ratmilk performed really darn good on the Thanatos.
Yeah, and I echo that exact same sentiment. That was a phenomenal game by the Thanatos, by Ratmilk. And this is not the Borscht team that is like their normal roster, but they kind of do play this really aggressive style. So that is kind of like that entire team. Jake maybe is just a little bit more run it down even harder than Final K was in support.
If you couldn't tell by the Cosmic Horror into the Staff of Mirrodin, into the Gem of Focus on Hades support. Anyway, we have a bracket to look at and see how North America is shaping up so far. Boy, the 2-2 matches have been exciting, but Borscht go to playoffs. Mr. Play-by-Play will have to wait and go through last chance qualifiers, which is going to be a battle. But honestly, going through, Borscht, I think, have secured themselves that they aren't this wishy-washy team. People were starting to wonder if they were against 5Ms, against team name of 5Ms, against Scrumptious, but there's more to go for sure for Borscht, but they've impressed me towards the end of the run here, and there's still games to go. There's still a matchup left to go for North America before the playoffs begin. Garf's Goblins and Look Within, which I think is going to be a really close mashup. And for me, I'm kind of leaning towards thinking Garf's Goblins can take it, but I know better than to fully bet against Look Within.
And I think Swiss is perfect for figuring out what are the best teams. Getting to this point where these are the 2-2 teams, they are very, very evenly matched. Garf's Goblins has improved a lot, and I've really liked what I've seen from them. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to lean ever so slightly to the side of Garf's Goblins, but it's going to be a great set regardless.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to revolve on how Sunprod performs. And if Lord Garfield is being Lord Garfield, you have a team essentially named after you. You've got to perform with it for sure. But it's crazy that we still have more gaming to go. Again, Borscht take it 2-0 over Mr. Play-by-Play. Game 1, for the VOD watchers, I'm sure it's going to be a fun watch, but Game 2 was just a really good game, and that gives us a lot to look forward to for the remainder of today. I mean, what's the kind of final thoughts, the final takeaways in that game from you?
I think Borscht's highs are very, very high, but they also have inconsistencies that are probably the reason that they're in this 2-2 slot, along with a few other things, but their highs are incredibly high. If they can just bring up that medium and that low just a little bit, that's not a team you want to run into.
I'm with you on that. The highs are high, and how high can Borscht go is the big question. And can Mr. Play-by-Play win their way back through last chance qualifiers? I'm sure we'll see them again. But that's going to do it for myself and Inbound. There's still one more set to go. 5 o'clock. Keep your eyes out for it. Hang out with Jorby and Trelly. It's going to do it for the two of us. So we'll be right back after a short break.